Take two. Good evening, everybody. I'll call to order the Marin Water Board meeting of February 13th, 2024. Terry, if we could have roll call, please.
Yes, good evening. Director Larry Russell.
Here.
Director Monty Schmidt. I see you. Director Jed Smith.
Here.
Vice President Matt Sampson.
Here.
And President Ranjiv Kush.
Here.
Thank you.
And do we have a motion to adopt our agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any public comments on the agenda?
No, we do not.
Great. Okay, then a vote, please, to adopt the agenda.
Yes. Director Russell.
Aye.
Director Schmidt. Aye. Director Smith.
Aye.
Vice President Sampson.
Yes.
And President Kush.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next item will be public comments on items that are not on the agenda.
Yes, we have two, Mr. Ed Jamison and then Mr. Phil Sauter. Please remember you have up to 3 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Jamison.
Yes, in many or likely most years, my water tastes bad in August and September. For at least 3 years now that I know of, Director Russell has suggested ozone treatment for our water. I believe North Marin Water uses ozone treatment. Why can't we have it? I'd like to suggest that district staff present to the board the possible benefits and costs of ozone treatment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sauter.
Thank you. A couple of weeks ago, there was an article on PFAS emissions from a Chemours plastics plant in North Carolina. The company said that recently installed thermal oxidizers reduced the levels of PFAS by 99.999%, and that these forever chemicals pose no risk to nearby residents. Yet surrounding residents are experiencing higher than normal rates of cancer and other illnesses, with even some horses dying of cancer. Rain has carried the PFAS into the groundwater and contaminated wells and forced many residents to abandon their vegetable gardens. And this contaminated water has entered the Cape Fear River and sent PFAS to downstream communities. One question is how the company can report benign test results while the community is experiencing dangerous health impacts. And the answer turns out to be fairly simple. First, Chemours tests for only 53 specific PFAS coming out of its smokestack, while there are many thousands of PFAS which are not tested for. Second, there are flaws in the company's testing methods. When The Guardian ran their own test, they found levels of PFAS 30 times what the company reported. What does this have to do with water in Marin County? First, there was a statement in a board meeting last year that Marin water has been tested for PFAS and is totally clear. This isn't hard to believe since most of our water comes from our own watershed, which does not contain large industrial facilities or sewage treatment plants, which are the primary sources of PFAS. But the district is also looking at water supplies from outside Marin, including bay water and brackish water. And we know that bay fish, bird eggs, and harbor seals have tested for some of the highest PFAS levels globally. This article contained 2 pieces of info that I wanted to make sure the board and staff considers as it looks at new sources of water supply. First, it's quite possible to test for a small number of PFAS and conclude we're clear, while the risk may be in the thousands of PFAS that we didn't test for. And second, we need to make sure we're running these comprehensive tests rather than tests that fail to detect large numbers of these forever chemicals. Because of the persistence of these chemicals, we've only got one chance to get it right. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further speakers.
Okay, we'll move on then to directors and general managers announcements. Matt, how about starting with you?
Great. Good evening. 2 quick ones. Last Thursday, we got to participate in the MCL Parks and Open Space working group on Thursday. And Carl, thanks for joining in online. Sorry, Sean, if I didn't see you on there, but it was really focused on prescribed fire and how we return prescribed fire in a responsible way to Marin County and actually the North Bay in general. And it was actually really exciting. For the first time, we had all the fire professionals in the room, as well as environmental groups and other stakeholders, all with the same direction of how do we get this back on the landscape. So Marin County Fire is going to be working with Audubon Canyon and looking to actually get a prescribed fire working group for the county that I'm hoping we can participate in, seeing that we have a lot of opportunity to do that. And one of the speakers also brought up some pretty new or novel ways to look at fuel mitigation based on fire science and the way fire is behaving in the event of a windstorm here in the area. And has some really interesting modeling that I think is going to be applicable to the region and the county. And I'm hoping we sometime in March, maybe at the watershed meeting, we can get that same presentation on the docket, so we can take a look to see if there's any applicable work that they're doing here on our watershed. And I think there will be. So pretty excited about that. And then second, just a general request about recycled water as we keep moving past the regulations, the release, to take a look at any updates on that, maybe just a good board discussion to get an update on how recycled water regulations are going and how the sanitary districts in the county are looking at potentially implementing anything. And then taking a look at the CMSA study we partnered with to see if there's still applicable information in there for that. Great, thank you.
Great. Thanks. Jed?
I didn't have any until Matt just spoke, but I'd like to second his request to have that presentation brought to us in March. If not one like it, I think we could all use that education and it'll help us move forward. And I'd like to second Matt's suggestion to look further at where we do have opportunities for recycled water. I do think that we should make some progress. I don't think we necessarily need to do a giant multi-$100 million plant, but there are smaller opportunities, and moving forward in this regard is good for the environment. Might be a little bit more expensive, but that's like insurance for the future. So I'll second that request to bring it forward.
Larry?
None.
Monty?
Nothing tonight.
Great. Okay, just a couple items from me. First, I want to note, about on February 4th, 5th, when we had our last big storms, I lost power at our house for a good 12, 15 hours. And of course, that was pretty widespread through a lot of Western Marin. And there's a lot of discussion and commentary about the vulnerability of our utilities to those types of events. But in those discussions, I didn't hear anything about vulnerability of our water system. And I think it's because we've taken for granted that our system will work well, despite pretty difficult circumstances. And most importantly, the fact that our water system relies on reliable electricity. And we'll note that nobody lost their water supply despite all the power outages. And that's because although we had power out at 20 of our pump stations and the San Geronimo water treatment plant, we had plans in place for managing that type of event, including the establishment of a permanent generator at the San Geronimo treatment plant with fuel storage. And I think that was, those are things that get us through that. And that's the result of careful planning and risk management. We're talking a lot about planning now, but I just want to emphasize how important that's been for this district and the benefits we enjoy from that. So I hope everyone else appreciates it. I also had the opportunity to attend the Sonoma Water Agency Joint Water Advisory Committee and Technical Advisory Committee meeting last Monday. Our representative, Jed, was not available, and neither was our alternate, Larry. And those are they cover a lot in those meetings. So I could take the rest of, I think, the evening discussing it, but I won't do that. I'm just going to try to hit on six quick points. Water supply conditions. Lake Sonoma and Mendocino are above their FURO deviation level. So the Army, this was over a week ago. So Army Corps of Engineers are now managing releases from that. I'm sure it's going to be an ongoing issue. There's a regional water supply resilience study underway by Jacobs. We know about that. It's currently mapping risks to our regional network and potential mitigation strategies, including wildfire, flooding, power losses, and the Potter Valley project uncertainty. I think that's going to be good information for all of us. The final report will be out by the fall of this year. The TAC Finance Committee provided us update that was focused on the 24-25 budgeted water deliveries for water rate calculations. And they made a recommendation to the WAC to adopt budgeted water rates that are based on an average annual demand over the last 3 years, as opposed to demand over the last 12 months, which normally they would go with the smaller of those numbers. So the less demand there is, the higher the price to maintain their operations. In this case, they've made an exception to take the annual average over the last 3 years, and that was approved by the WAC. There was a very quick update on the Potter Valley project update. I think as we've discussed, the PG&E surrender application remains due in June. The entity that will take over management now, I learned, is called the Eel Russian River Project Authority, or ERPA. And then there is also the Russian Water Forum. They've received, they announced a $2 million grant from the Bureau of Reclamation to Sonoma Water was announced in that context for improving fish passage at the Eel River Cape Horn Dam and investigating options for transbasin diversions from the Eel to Russian rivers. Probably the most interesting thing I thought was, or the most sort of pressing, was the government affairs update because of the challenges that the state is facing with budget, which will affect some of the things that we are interested in. For example, the FERO program, which is currently funded at about 10 million, is going to be cut from about between 1 to 5. That's not determined yet. The person who gave that update was very emphatic about checking with the Department of Water Resources on any funding priorities that we may have. And he also made a big push to get any earmark requests into our congressperson ASAP. So I'll stop there. So with that, I think the next item is sorry, Larry.
I'd like to add a comment. Your observations were correct about the power, with one exception. Besides that generator, we have 34 portable generators. But even more importantly is to understand that gravity is the difference that separates us from the water, from the power company. We can store the water. That's what all those tanks are. So water supply stays on even when there's no power for a while.
Right.
Sooner or later, you have to have the power, but it's important to recognize the role that nature plays, or gravity plays, in keeping us in water supply.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point. Yeah. Ben, any general managers announcements?
Actually, I had planned to share exactly what you did today, and you did it so well. I'll let that stand. But it has been impressive seeing staff respond to these big events. And, you know, of course, there's a main break in the middle of the big storm, and we have folks out dealing with that. So we are fortunate, as you noted, to have really strong staff that is so committed, and we keep it running under any circumstances. So yeah, and we're prepared. Of course, we know we got some coming up in the next 10 days, some pretty big events, and we'll be out there again.
Probably should address a little bit of what a main break means. I mean, they understand what the pipe means, but what do we have to do in order for the water to flow into the storm drain?
Oh yeah. Well, it's actually a good point, and maybe we'll capture it and bring back in detail, because it is a very important aspect of what we do in terms of main breaks. And what Director Russell's referring to is the dechlorination of, so the first responder, there's a procedure we have, and we have to ensure, and again, I think bringing this back would be a rich discussion and presentation to the board. But we want to limit chlorinated water going into the creeks, because that kills the fish and other critters that may be there. And most creeks in Marin have some sort of protected salmon, some sort of salmonoid, even, you know, really small ones. So they also have to, of course, secure the leak and assess the damage, and then call folks in to do the work. So yeah, it's quite a lot in the middle of a massive rainstorm. Of course, you know, you're in a pit. It's a pretty rough operation, but yeah, we do it often, and we're good at it. But I do think we'll bring back an update to talk specifically about, because it's important. And even if inadvertently you have fish kills, which do happen, it's can be considered a take under endangered species and that sort of stuff, and you have to mitigate. And we're in constant coordination with the regulators when that occurs, which is not often, because we really are quick out there and mobilize and take care of it. But it is a very important aspect of that response.
Yeah, since I've been on the board, I can remember one event of exactly that nature. They hit us for an illegal take, and it was a 6-figure fine. So it's actually a funny story in a sense. Our fish biologists collected the dead fish and put them in the freezer to give them to Fish and Wildlife. And they considered that to be a penalty because we had taken the fish out of the creek, even though they were dead, and we had killed them. But it was sort of funny how it played out. Anyway, what Ben's talking about is very serious stuff. It can really boil up fast, and there's nearly not much you can say about it. You know, it's like getting your hand caught in a cookie jar. It's like, yeah, I did it.
Yeah, it's kind of a strict liability issue.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Larry and Ben for the additional information. I think the next item on our agenda is to approve our consent calendar. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Any public comments on the consent calendar?
There are none.
Do we have a second? Roll call, please. A vote, please, Terry.
Yes. Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Schmidt,
Aye.
Director Smith,
Aye.
Vice President Sampson,
Yes.
and President Kush. Thank you.
Okay, on to our regular agenda. Item 8A is the memorandum of agreement between Marin County Fire Department and Marin Municipal Water District. Sean?
All right. Good evening, Director Sean Horn, Director of Watershed Resources, and I'm joined with
Carl Sanders, Natural Resources Program Manager.
and we also have Don Wick, our Chief Ranger. And the item before you is a memorandum of agreement with Marin County Fire and Marin Municipal Water District. This is an update to an agreement that we had in place in 2018 that expired in 2022. And we're going to walk you through a presentation that kind of overviews the benefits of this agreement with Marin County Fire for the district. So this agreement is going to support the implementation of our Biodiversity Fires and Fuels Integrated Plan. This document was adopted in 2019 and provides the district with the environmental clearance to do our vegetation management on the watershed in order to protect biodiversity and reduce the potential risk of wildfire on the watershed. The map's a little blown out, sorry about that, but this is just a visual of what we've been able to complete under the BIFIP in the last 5 years and what we have planned through 2026. The types of management actions that are within the BIFIP that these crews will be working on include invasive broom management, pile burning, prescribed burning, forest restoration and fuel reduction, Douglas fir abatement, and fuel break maintenance and construction. And we'll kind of walk through some of those activities and the various crews that we will benefit from using with this contract as part of the agreement with Marin County Fire. So first, the Fire Foundry. You might have heard this group in Marin County is the Fire Innovation, Recruitment, and Education Foundry. And this is a really kind of cutting edge program that Marin County Fire has invested in and started to develop. And it's a workforce development and education program with the goal of supporting underserved and underrepresented individuals in navigating a pathway towards a sustainable career in the fire services or related career field. It's a real partnership that's growing in Marin County. The Marin County Fire kind of being the core component, and then Conservation Corps North Bay, our local community college, and then agencies like Parks District and the Water District. The benefit of the Fire Foundry program is it really is designed to be a workforce development initiative here in Marin County. It's providing crew training to these folks, and California Conservation Corps, with their kind of foundational organizational capacity, is the employer of record, and bringing these folks in to work in tandem with Marin County Fire to help implement some vegetation management projects throughout the county. So this is really adding capacity And it's really designed to be an early career program. So you're kind of bringing folks in who might not have had a history of connecting with natural resources or having an understanding of a career path in that space of fire services or water resource management, and providing them the opportunity to connect and coordinate with these projects that we are implementing throughout the county. The program itself is really unique in that it provides kind of various core components. It has workforce development where they develop training, could be Sawyer training or chipper training or experience working on defensible space and vegetation management. So you learn about plant ID, what invasive plants are, what forest restoration looks like. And then through the partnership with the College of Marin, they take the core classes that are required for some of the certifications to get certified for wildland firefighting or EMT. And then through their partnership with Marin County Fire, they get the mentorship of kind of hard and soft skills. So it's a really broad kind of program that's designed to lift folks up. And then it also has support services in the form of housing, food support, mental support, and tutoring if needed. And I think that's kind of just a really unique opportunity that's being developed here and spearheaded in Marin. And we're excited to be part of it with our work on the watershed.
How many students are there?
I don't know the total number. Last year, I think it's somewhere under 20. And I think they're growing as they find more partners to advance this. Sorry, we're having a little technical difficulty. So the type of work the crews will be doing, the Fire Foundry crew specifically on the watershed, will be helping us with some of our roadside brushing and fuel break maintenance. They'll also be supporting our forest restoration work and maintenance of our forest restoration sites, and then invasive broom management and fuel reduction work. The district has implementing about 1,500 acres of vegetation management on the watershed right now. We're really dependent on contract crews to support our internal staff in doing this work. And this type of crew is really just adding capacity to how we do it and allowing the district to invest in kind of workforce development efforts countywide. And we're really benefiting from the infrastructure that's been put in place by Marin County Fire and through the partnerships that they've been developing with the College of Marin and other agencies. So in addition to the Fire Foundry crew, we're benefiting in this contract through being able to use the Marin County TAM fire crews. And so that's a crew that's seasonal crews, and they're designed to be vegetation support and handline support. And so this crew will be able to come on and support the district in doing some vegetation management work in preparation for prescribed burn, and then also supporting our pile burning operations. So as we continue to do fuel reduction, specifically our forest restoration work, we're generating a lot of piles on the watershed, and this is the type of crew that we really need in order to complete those projects to get the overall benefit of the work that we're trying to do. The prescribed burning work is really going to be critical to have a partnership with Marin County Fire. They've been helping us implement recent projects up at Rock Springs. And this contract will allow us to kind of use them in a more forward process in terms of helping us get our burn plans and sites prepped for implementing these projects, and then having the capacity and support on an annual basis to actually be able to implement them, and then to support the mop-up at the end of it. So this is really lifting our staff's capacity and bringing additional technical support into the district's operations. And then, as I mentioned, the pile burning, critical kind of final touch that we need to do on a lot of our initial forest restoration work, and having additional capacity through this contract is really going to help us complete that work. I'll just note that with the BIFIP as being kind of our underlying vegetation management program, we also have, developed the One TAM Forest Health strategy, which we presented here at a recent watershed committee meeting. We've been able to use those two documents to go after recent grant funding, and the One TAM collaboration has put together grants in the last couple of months totaling about $14 million, of which about 6.8 would be coming to the district if we're successful with all of that. And that's going to be some of the funding that we'll be able to use to help us fund the crews under this contract. So we'll be using our BIFIP internal funding as well as grant funding to carry out this work and continue to kind of scale up the BIFIP implementation. With that, anything to add? We'll take any questions you might have. Otherwise, the request is to approve the memorandum of agreement between Marin County Fire and the Marin Municipal Water District.
Thank you, Sean. Director's comments. Larry, start with you.
having a participation. Something to think about. I'm all for it. What you're proposing looks great to me.
Jed?
Thank you.
Matt?
I'm very excited about this contract being renewed back up, and the Fire Foundry, like you mentioned, is such a unique group. It's a state recognized program that's really growing legs of its own. In fact, as I'm sure you guys know, they're building housing at Indian Valley campus at College of Marin. So there's a full live there, rent free, really a complete package on how to get into this. And Larry, to your comments, I think you can cut and paste this type of program for a different area. I think it'd be definitely something to look at. And, especially when we start looking at some opportunities in the watershed at possible congregate housing that to support a program like that, I think we can start making some really good things happen too. One of the things I really enjoy about this is that these are the folks that are going to be coming to the watershed with a fire breakout, and having that relationship and the understanding that we're already going to be working with them hand in hand prior to or left of the bang on this one is going to allow them to come in and make real informed decisions that we hopefully get some expanded fire management should we have an incident on the watershed. So very, very excited about that. And these folks are ready to go. And I can't reiterate enough. Let's get them going right away, because we never know what fire season is going to do. And we have way too many piles in the watershed, and we have to get our lands ready to receive good fire. And the faster we can do that, the happier I'm going to be. So thank you for putting this forward. Very important. Appreciate it. Oh, and we might be able to recruit some folks out of this program too, if we can show them well enough on the.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Monty?
I think Matt said it really, really well. I mean, this is such a great, exciting program. Foremost, obviously, is that we really never know when we are going to be faced with a really dangerous wildfire season. And everything we can do right now to be prepared is going to be deeply appreciated when we are next facing hot, dry conditions. I really, really appreciate the connection with workforce training. I really am a big believer in if we are cutting edge in what we're doing here, providing a place where people can learn and carry that forward, that is such a gift and benefit to natural resource management, water management, and fire management. And I'm glad that we're providing that. I think we should be proud of that. And lastly, to the great job we're doing at going after grant funds. I mean, how exciting the idea of bringing in, $6+ million in grant funds to help support our work. Just a great program all the way around. So thank you.
Thanks, Monty. Yeah, just, Larry, to your point on similar programs for the water side of things, at one of the North Bay Watershed Association meetings that you and I attended, there was a presentation by a group that specialized, I think, in workforce development for water and water suppliers. So there may be, some follow-up we could do with that.
There is a regional coalition that was developed to address the growing concern in the industry, both water and wastewater operations. The Bay Area used to be, right, obviously historically more industrial, and that provided a base to bring folks into the municipal sector from the industrial sector. And that's really dried up, and then similar with bases as well. So the Bay Area really found itself in, this is a national issue as well, for those kind of similar reasons, this industrial base that was kind of the training ground for operators in many respects. So anyway, there was this, it's called Baywork, this coalition formed that's sponsored by utilities, and we're members and active in it to address these hard to fill positions with partnering in community colleges and the like. Now, we've talked about trying to expand that up to the North Bay, because now it resides mostly in the East Bay, kind of the activity, and I believe the community colleges are all over there. So it would be interesting. I think we'll need to think about it more and see if we can get some partners, because the numbers is really what you need. And right, this program has such a high, the Foundry program need of big numbers that then supports a big program. But partnering with Sonoma and other utilities and maybe Santa Rosa, we can think about. So we have talked about it, and it's something we'll track and follow up on. Instrument techs is the other kind of big area in the water wastewater field that's really difficult to find folks.
I think it's in our strategic plan. So if that does pass later, we will have to follow.
Right.
Sean, you noted that, you know, there's a lot of grant funding out, you know, requests out, and your track record is pretty good. So we're assuming a lot of it will come in. How much can we, do you have an estimate of how much we can accomplish through this cooperation if we don't get as much as we anticipate? I didn't see a budget specifically, you know, for the activities in the memorandum.
Yeah, so the agreement is set up so that we have kind of annual coordination with County Fire each year to allow us to develop a scope of work based on the budgets that we have available for implementation of the work. We know that we're going on Thursday to the Wildlife Conservation Board, which is one of the grants that we submitted as part of OneTAM. About 2.8 million of that grant will come to support our work. So we will have resources to carry this forward in the next year and 2 years. And we're hopeful on the other grants as well.
Great.
Ron, Chief, I've budgeted money this year, you know, this FY for both the TAM crew and the Foundry crews, assuming the agreement passes.
It's exciting. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Terry, any public comments?
Yes, we do. Mr. Larry Minikis, please.
Yes, good evening, folks. And this is a fantastic program. And what we're doing here, working on an interagency basis, is really critical to our future. We're finally looking at our landscapes in a holistic manner. And while the public doesn't see this, the criticality of this going forward, when we do have a fire, will show its benefits. I highly support prescribed burning. What we're doing here is we're bringing health back to our forests. These are good programs. I strongly encourage them. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further speakers.
Okay, then do we have a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement between Marin County Fire Department and Marin Municipal Water District?
So moved.
Second.
Terry, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Schmidt,
Aye.
Director Smith,
Aye.
Vice President Sampson,
Yes.
and President Kush.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks, Carl. Moving on to item 8B, strategic plan development.
Good evening, directors. Adrienne Mertens, Communications Public Affairs Manager. So tonight, Strat's plan agenda item is an action item with recommendation that a board approve the proposed 5-year plan. This plan really is meant to chart the district's priorities for the next 5 years. That's years covering 2024 through 2028. I'll give just a brief background on our journey through the process of developing this plan for the benefit of the public who's tuning in. We began this process over the summer, working with our consultants from Catalyst, Charles Gardner, Lenadria Porter, and spent first several weeks gathering input from district staff from all of our departments, as well as collecting input from board members through individual meetings. And then we first came to a board meeting on September 19th to review the district's mission, vision, and values to really set the foundation for developing the plan. And then over a series of 5 more meetings, we clarified the goals, the 5 goals that are in this plan, as well as the objectives and the action items that correlate with each of those goals. And then 3 weeks ago, on January 23rd board meeting, staff reviewed the proposed plan in its entirety with the board, highlighting specific areas where we had updated the plan with feedback that we had received from the board at previous meetings where we were working on the plan. After that meeting, we did receive additional input from the board and incorporated those changes into the plan. And the board did receive through written correspondence an updated version of that plan. On February 1st, we also posted it on our website homepage, marinwater.org, so that the public would have a chance to view the final proposed plan. And so that brings us to tonight, where we are here again to recommend that the board consider adoption of the 5-year plan. And we'll take any questions.
Questions or board comments for Adrian? Monty, do you want to kick us off?
Oh, I just want to say, I think that that the 5-year plan really reflects a lot of careful consideration, a long journey. Thank you to Adrian and to staff who patiently worked through a lot of comments. Sometimes not easy to really decipher what the direction was. We just were trying to get the right ideas, the right tone, the right spirit, and obviously the right goals for our organization, which I think we have done, and I think it reflects the future that we are striving toward, that is ambitious and with the intention to be the best district that we can be on stronger footing to achieve our mission. So I think it's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Monty. Larry?
Well, again, thanks for all your hard work. Did we get any substantive comments from the posting on the website?
We did not receive any comments from the public. And I will mention we did send it out in our February e-news, went out February 1st to try to reach 20,000 subscribers to let them know it was posted.
Thanks.
Jed?
Yeah, I think it's hard to set clear goals like you have, to put a stake in the ground and to try to make sure that you're have measurable metrics. And it's on us right now. This is on this board, this team, this leadership team, and this staff to execute. And the public needs to hold us accountable. And I look forward to achieving the goals that we've set out. And I hope that we report on it as we move along and make our county and our customers proud.
Thanks, Jed. Matt?
I'd just like to pile on the praise, but appreciate the transparency of this entire process, because it is important for not just the board to be involved, but staff and the public, because it's going to help drive what we're doing. And also, thank you to both you and the Catalyst Group for flexibility, taking comments all the way to the 11th hour to make sure that we really try to get it as close to right as possible. But I think it's important because this is a big document. This is a very important document. And if we're going to spend this much time on it and put this much input and require a lot of staff time and public input, then we should be following this type of process. And as we move forward, really using this as a guiding document, not just something that's going to be on a shelf. And it'd be interesting to see how we can tie most of our requests or projects back to this plan to make sure we're staying in line with it over the next 5 years. Thank you.
Yeah, my thanks as well, Adrian. It's been I think a really productive experience, but maybe reflecting on what Jed and Matt said, it's in some ways we're finishing the strategic plan, but this really is just the beginning of the next step, which is implementing the plan and establishing the sort of the granularity that we don't have at this very high level strategic place. Ben, it'd be great to maybe get a couple of comments from you on what we start next.
Thank you. So the next step in this process, and it's intentionally designed working with the board and staff to ensure it's an actionable document and that we do meet the commitments that are identified there. And it's very big, ambitious, and somewhat bold in some respects, but all of the activities reflect really, I think, the criticality of this organization moving forward in a continuous improvement mindset. So in terms of the next step, next month at the board retreat, will be developing an annual plan that will work with the board and share the selected, this is a 5-year plan, right? So the selected initiatives for this coming year from the strategic plan with very specific milestones and deliverables this coming year. And that will be, we'll check in with the board on a quarterly basis in terms of progress. And at the end of the year, as we develop the next annual plan, we'll be reviewing the past one and what we met, if anything we didn't, and have discussions why. And so this will be an ongoing, very active effort to implement on an annual basis. We're very detailed milestones. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward, and staff is already working pretty hard developing the annual work plan, the draft that we're going to bring to the board in terms of, relative priorities initially as staff sees them, kind of synergies between different activities, resource constraints in some instances, and we think have a very rich and meaningful discussion with the board at the retreat. Also wanted to share that we do have a lunchtime speaker for the retreat. Mark Brown's going to join us, and I think that will be a great opportunity to hear what he's thinking, where he's going, and have an engagement opportunity with the board.
And that's Marin Wildfire Protection
Thank
Authority.
you.
Yeah. And any other board responses or comments before we go to public comment? Terry, any public comment?
Yes, Mr. Phil Sauter, then Mr. Larry Menikis.
I found the district's longstanding mission statement under the water quality section on the district's website. It states, "Our core mission is to provide fresh, high-quality drinking water at a reasonable price. Our local water supply means you can be sure your water is clean, fresh, and sustainably sourced." The mission statement we're looking at tonight in this document diverges from this core mission by removing any reference to drinking water and by calling for studies of non-local, lower quality water sources, such as desalination and brackish water. In my opinion, this represents a significant shift from the district's longstanding mission, and one which deserves at least as much public outreach and input as did the recent rate change process. We've rightly taken pride in the fact that Marin Water customers have made significant progress in reducing their use of indoor potable water. We're among the most frugal users in the country, and if it were indoor potable water alone that guided our mission, we'd already have a 4-year supply of high-quality water. But when we revise our mission to include using high-quality potable water for outdoor irrigation, we force ourselves to face 2-year supplies or to find and invest in sources of lower quality water to introduce into our potable water supply. Of course, the resolution to these contradictions would be a robust conservation program to reduce outdoor use of potable water. The proposed 800 acre-foot use and waste reduction in 5 years is equivalent to 3 gallons per capita per day. This may be a reasonable goal for indoor water conservation, but it's nowhere near the potential for outdoor water conservation. Here in Marin, we've reduced summer usage from 120 gallons per capita per day in 2020 to 85 gallons per capita per day in 2022, and we held for 2023. We used to be double the summer usage of Santa Cruz, and now we're only 50% higher. We can do much better with greater investment and targeted programs to reduce outdoor use of potable water. It would mean returning focus to a reliable supply of potable water for indoor use, less reliance on lower quality water from outside sources, fewer capital-intensive projects, and lower water costs, all things we've stood for many decades. Although the board certainly has the power to change the district's mission statement in less than a year, and with what I think is minimal public involvement, I think it would show respect to its customers to allow for a slower pace and increased public participation. With equal respect, I ask the board to delay approval of this new mission statement until that process has taken place. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Larry Minikis, and then Miss Marilyn Price.
Yes, good evening. Clearly, a huge amount of work went into this plan. I want to thank staff and your consultant for all your fine work. The plan is detailed, it is clear, and it is concise, and it sets a model for this organization for the future. It's really good work. I also want to mention I left out something in my previous comments, and that's about Fire Foundry and the Ecologically Sound Practices Partnership, which was founded when Measure C was passed. When Fire Chief Jason Weber approached us. And the Ecologically Sound Practices Partnership has been working to support Fire Foundry so that when they're out there, we're doing things the right way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Price?
Yes, I too want to thank you for all the time you've spent on this strategic plan, and so glad to hear that it's not going to just sit on the shelf. I've been involved with organizations where so much time is spent on these strategic plans and then they do just sit on the shelf. So, but I just want to say, as you go along, I do hope that you continue to consider very seriously what we can do in the way of conservation measures so that we can avoid capital intensive projects like desalt and other measures and be able to live within, hopefully, actually what we can generate here in Marin County. I feel like through the rainwater that comes to our county, I feel that with, intensive conservation, and if we could get residents to do that, we could do this. But I know you all are thinking about this too, and thank you again.
Thank you. There are no further speakers.
Great. It's been a long discussion around this plan. I think it's been a good discussion. I think we've debated a lot of the points. I think we've worked hard to come to agreement on a lot of complicated issues. And I think it's important to note that this is a small part of what we're trying to accomplish. Next week's going to be a very different story. I would like to ensure that we have the bandwidth and the space to address all the other important things that we have to get done, and that also rely on some of the elements rely on elements of our strategic plan. Given how important this is for moving forward with other big district goals, I'd very much like to ask for a motion to adopt the strategic plan as it stands.
Enthusiastically moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
If we could have a vote, please, Terry.
Yes, Director Russell?
We hear you, Phil, but I think we just need to move ahead on this thing to get it put into reality. We'll keep those thoughts in mind and solicit comment more from the public. I think it's a good idea. Aye.
Thank you. Director Schmidt?
Aye.
Director Smith?
Aye.
Vice President Sampson?
Aye.
And President Kush?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, Terry, item 9 is future board and committee meetings and upcoming agenda items.
Yes. So for the remainder of this week, we'll have our Finance and Administration Committee meeting this Thursday, as well as the Operations Committee meeting on Friday. Next week, there aren't any meetings, but the following week, we have 3 meetings. February 27th is our regular Board of Directors meeting. Wednesday, February 28th is our Communications and Water Efficiency Committee meeting. And then the following day, February 29th, is our Watershed Committee meeting at 6 p.m., which will be held at the City of San Rafael's council chambers. So that's the one that's a little bit askew. And then an external meeting coming up is, I hope I got this right, the Tamales Bay Foundation Advisory Committee meeting on February 16th at 3 p.m. And that's all I have.
Great, thanks, Terry. And with that, we'll move then to closed session. Before we do that, are there any public comments on closed session items?
There are none.
Okay, Ben.
Okay, I can invite the public to either wait until our board member comes back, or you're more than free to leave. But right now I'm going to temporarily put a pause on this recording.
Was adjourned at 7:30 p.m. with no actionable items to report. With that, we'll adjourn the Marin Water Board meeting of February 13th, 2024. Thank you.